Hi there guys and girls, welcome back to Concealing Modelling. This time we're taking the Challenger 2 that we left in a nice clean cut format in the last video and turning it into this, a moving hedge. So there'll be some of you who turn around and say, oh that's too much, that's too extreme, but I'll input a couple of the reference photos I used to do this. How far live camo goes. So I'll run through the materials used and then each step as we get there. But it's pretty much two materials and then just some pigments and weathering equipment, so not a massive amount. So see you after. Okay, so for this simple weathering, simple white PVA glue, enamel thinner, doesn't have to be AK, it can just be any enamel thinner, truck wash, wet mud, heavy mud, sorry, or wet mud, dry step, panel liner if you haven't already used panel liner on your vehicle, black pigment, rubble pigment, and heavy European earth pigment. I went with two choices of foliage for this one. Woodland Scenic fine leaf dark green and slightly lighter green. So I went with this foliage as it comes, all it is sea foam that's been flocked. It just saves a lot of hassle trying to do it yourself if you don't have a flocker. Yes, it's not particularly cheap, but you do get a lot in the box and you can use it for other things, so diorama foliages, etc. But it comes in a box, pre-flocked, pre-glued, and also they generally paint or dye the sea foam before they flock it. So it's quite a nice and easy, simple solution for it. So we'll do the foliage first on the turret, and then we'll do the foliage on the hull, followed by the weathering. Let's go with the turret. Okay, so first things first, I changed from bluey black panel liner to a night black panel liner instead, as I wasn't particularly overall happy with the coloration. So this is a pretty normal step for well, on any model really. So using a thin brush, dip into the panel liner, and then go round and just dab on the model itself, and the panel liner literally will follow the creases in the model and highlight the deviations. So one little dip on the brush actually goes a long way. I'm not worried about the excess at the moment, and we'll deal with that later on. But what's the word I'm thinking of? Can't think of the word. The model has been varnished using a matte varnish, so it does help the liner run in the grooves and joins. But as the brush slowly loses its load, the panel liner slowly goes less and less. Okay, so just a basic panel line on the turret. Not particularly fussed about doing too much. Try and get in the little bits that may be left uncovered. And before you ask what is the turret actually stood on, it is just a wash bottle, light rust bottle, just held on with blue tack. That's all. So just finishing off now. Right. So that will just about do for the turret. Just gonna do around the handle as well on the Tish barbette, thermal imaging sight housing barbette. So there we go. Nice, very quick panel line on the turret, highlighting any gaps that occur in the armour itself or in the vehicle itself. Okay, so now I've jumped into time lapse for this, as it can get a little bit tedious. So using the PVA basically as a dip to dip the foliage in itself and then apply it to the vehicle. The idea is you want to try and keep the sights as clear as you possibly can, and same as any vision ports or communications equipment, etc. So nice and gently with the pressure, not to break the foliage down, because you don't want it to be basically flat packed. The idea is to break up the vehicle, the shape of the vehicle, as much as possible. The reason I've got two different colours of foliage with this is when you're applying live camouflage, you can be picking it up from the ground, you can pick it up from the trees, wherever you can find it. So as you've just seen, applying on the side of a vehicle is quite difficult, as it does lack the adhesion factor. So you've just got to bear with it, be a little bit patient. But once again, trying to break up the shape of the vehicle overall while maintaining your vision ports clear, etc. Also as well, trying to keep it away from the running gear or any movable parts themselves, as they will get jammed up. Also as well, the exhaust ports, try and keep those as clear as possible, as you would do, because they will catch fire. And once again, onto the front of the vehicle, trying not to overdo it. Gun barrel, going to be quite difficult, so I've actually went through and pre-chosen these so they will sit together quite nicely. Using PVA again, light pressure to adhere them. I actually crumpled these ones up slightly so they would form around the shape of the barrel, trying to form a uniform layer between them. So last few little bits on there, and there we go. Just gentle little touch up with a few other bits. So now onto the weathering. So we're using the rubble pigment to lay down a light dirt layer to start with, adhering it in with the enamel thinner. So if you've worked on a vehicle, you'll understand there are certain places where everyone will walk upon it, and places they won't. So copying those lines from what I know. Then going over the top with the heavy European earth, as the underlayer will be drier than the upper layer. So it adds a wetter, darker effect on here. Okay, now we're on to the running gear and tracks. So we're using the dried step as basically splatter effect for anything that's hit the vehicle and dried on, going all the way around, trying to get a bit at the bottom of the foliage and side skirts as well. anywhere mud may be kicked up in heavy conditions. And onto the front again, general light coating all over, as these are going to be quite heavily weathered. And the back from these will get absolutely caked with mud. The lights will be completely crusted over. So now we're on to the heavy earth or wet mud. So applying this with stippling effect, not all over, just as you feel it's necessary. So these, like I said, these are going to be in quite boggy conditions, so I have pretty much done as I remember a vehicle being pretty caked in the running gear department. I've also done the tracks as they've come up. That's just my own personal benefit. If you want to add to the texture for the mud, then just go over it again with a stipple brush as it's drying. So once again, lower hull of the vehicle with the pigment, rubble to start with, enamel thinner to adhere it. So as you've noticed, I've done around the turret ring itself. As on Challenger 2, this is where you will walk unless you want to climb on top of the turret and onto the back decks themselves. So the radiator fans or the grills, as you can see, have been kept clear as they are constantly blowing and sucking in air. And then once again with the heavy earth to simulate wet mud. Pretty much all the way around, again, just over the top of where the rubble is, as the rubble is the lower layer that's dried due to heat coming off the vehicle. And on the back decks again, barrels, I've stood on them a few times. You shouldn't stand on them, I know. Right then, guys and girls, so there we have it. Nice, simple, short process in turning a tank into a moving bush. Very pleased with how this one and the other ones come out, as they will be appearing in a diorama together. That's what I'm going to start working on next. That might take a little while, as it's going to be something I've only done once, so it may take a little bit of time to get it right as I want it. But there we have it, nicely done. And the only thing I've added off camera is some black pigment for the exhaust stains. Apart from that, that's everything. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.